Hello, and welcome to Socially Holistic Podcast. Socially Holistic helps coaches and holistic entrepreneurs and women in heart-centered businesses make sense of social media so they can build their own online network and get more clients. As a heart-centered business owner, you do amazing work. Holly's mission in life is to help you help more people. Help us help more women in business with a 5-star review of this podcast. Please leave one today over at iTunes. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more heart-centered businesses will be successful. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Socially Holistic Podcast. This is Holly Wharton and I'm really excited to be here with Kate Swoboda, also known as Kate Courageous. Welcome, Kate.
Thanks so much for having me. Hi.
Thanks for being here. Kate, you have a lovely website called Your Courageous Life. Now, is that also your business name?
I have an LLC name that's for the purposes of official paperwork. But, yes, that's the business name that I utilize. Although in October, I actually will, and I'm wondering how this is going to go, I will be the head mistress of 2 websites, yourcourageouslife.com and coachingblueprint.com.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, this is the business and this is how it's going.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Where would you like me to start? Because I bet you don't want to be here for hours and days. So,
why don't you tell us a little bit about your business journey and how you got to where you are with your business today?
I had a background in teaching, and I really noticed that the thing that I enjoyed the most about teaching was being able to interact with the students. And, the personal growth bug had bitten. And I, after I got my coaching training, I spent a couple of years just saying, got to play this safe. Teaching is the thing that's going to pay the bills, and coaching and having a couple of clients on the side, that'll be this thing that I do just for fun. And in 2009, it just became clear to me that doing this part-time wasn't really what I wanted. I really wanted to turn coaching into a full-time endeavor. And so from there, I started expanding outward and creating content and courses and really getting very committed around things like blogging and marketing and learning all that I could about these sorts of things. And it's just been going and going and going since then, and in a really beautiful way. And it was a couple years ago that my business was humming along well enough that other coaches started emailing me. I was getting emails every week with people going, so how are you doing this exactly? How are you making money in this business? And I went, well, you know what? I'll create an e-program that speaks exactly to that. I will tell you everything, because I felt as though I needed to learn it all by trial and error. I made a ton of mistakes. I did everything, I think I did everything the hard way. And then later kind of went, oh, I could have done it this other way, and short-circuited a lot of things to be more efficient faster. And the coaching blueprint is what came out of that. And the next step in my business's evolution is coachingblueprint.com, which is going to be not just the program, but I'm actually really wanting to create a community hub just for life coaches. So it's all very exciting.
So tell us a little bit more about the coaching blueprint. How does that work?
And in terms of the framework or the content?
In terms of what kinds of things coaches can expect to learn as far as setting up their coaching business, because I think so many coaches really, really passionate about coaching, and they train as coaches, and then they struggle so much to set up their businesses. And I've seen so many coaches actually go back to whatever their previous career was just because they couldn't make it happen. So what kinds of things do you teach them?
Well, the program is set into 4 different modules. I think that all the modules do intersect with one another, but here's the thing. I really actually, the second module is about marketing, but I really actually think that a lot of what will inform marketing comes from the first module, which is all about really, this blueprint metaphor that I'm using is an apt one, because that foundational module is all about what is the value that you provide? What are the mental blocks and challenges that you have around setting up a business? Do you have an ick feeling about the word marketing? Are you hesitating to charge what you're actually worth? Or are you like charging wildly outside of what is kind of the industry norm per session, and then beating yourself up because you don't have clients and it's really just a technical issue to fix? So I really feel like that chapter is hugely important, because when you start to look at what you uniquely bring to your clients and you start to actually look at how to do this business thing your way, then you end up showing up more authentically in the marketing sphere. There are other modules, we've talking about things like workflows and metrics. It's so important, I think, to have workflows. I share all of my favorite time hacks for how you can spend less time on admin and, so you can spend more time doing the fun client part. And metrics are really important too. Like it's, if you're going to invest in your business, you need to know where to invest. And so I talk about how to know what to track and how to track it so that you know where to invest.
Excellent.
And then there's a bonus module that's all about going beyond one-on-one life coaching. It's like retreats and programs and stuff like that. So I kind of pack as much value as I can into one product. And someone once said to me, Kate, you might not want to put all of that in there because, then you won't have anything else to sell. And I'm kind of like, I'm putting it all in there, man. Like really and truly, I'm putting it all in there because it's what I would, the coaching blueprint is exactly what I would have wanted when I was starting my practice.
So it's really a holistic focus on setting up a coaching business.
Yes, absolutely.
I love what you talked about the foundation work, about getting clear on what value you bring to the table as a coach and what your blocks are around business and marketing. I think that's really, really fascinating.
Yeah, it's been my experience because I do one-on-one consulting now with life coaches. And it's been my experience that the number one thing that people run up against, that coaches run up against, it's not actually the money issue that'll bury them. It's not actually marketing. It's all the internal stuff. It's feeling crappy. It's feeling overwhelmed. It's feeling alone as you try to figure out what the next step should be.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that train as coaches don't have previous business experience. So it's like they're really starting out fresh, not just as coaches, but also as business owners.
Yeah, and I really invite people to think of how they set life coaches, to think of, how you set up your business is, this is a personal growth experience. This is not like a thing you need to learn how to do so you can make money. This is life. And all the ways in which you're afraid to show up, your clients go through that. And all the ways in which you're afraid of making a mistake, your clients go through that. And all the ways in which you have hang-ups around money, your clients have hang-ups around money. And so if you really start to use setting up your business as a place where you can walk your talk, and all the things that you would guide a client in, you apply that to setting up a business, it becomes a much richer experience. And I really think that more of people and who people really are shows up in their businesses when they choose to see it that way.
And I think starting your own business can bring up so many issues that you never realized were there. It's like it really kind of puts that mirror up there and says, look, this is what you need to deal with, and this is what you need to get through if you're going to be successful. Oh, yeah,
definitely.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you overcome in setting up your business?
All emotional challenges, like, money stuff, totally. And I'm not just talking about not making enough money or not saving enough money. I'm also talking about working through feelings of like, what's in my bank account is somehow indicative of who I am.
Yeah, and what you're worth.
Oh, yeah. And I'd also say that there has been stuff around, certainly there's been stuff around comparisons, so-and-so did it better, or I want to be part of that group and I'm not part of that group. And this is, by the way, one of the big reasons why I'm a huge advocate of coaches forming masterminds. Like there's this whole ethos I can see online where people are like, well, there's this big coaching clique and I'm not part of that clique. And it's like, well, don't even try to be. Like, don't even play this, like, how can I network with A-listers game? Just go find your people and you guys become like the hot coaching clique or, whatever.
Yeah.
And just find your people and focus on that, because that's what's going to make you happier. It would be pretty hollow to get in with some group of coaches online and not really feel connected or feel like it's all based on fear that you're connecting with people.
Right. And it's just for the status of being kind of out there with them.
Yeah. It's like, just find your people and wherever they're showing up.
Now, was there a tipping point, would you say, in your business where it just kind of something clicked and it just started flowing?
It's such a great question. I would say that there have been several tipping points. It's like, and I still see ebbs and flows in my business. I still, I can have a $10,000 month followed by a $2,000 month. That is still very much something that can happen. So let's see. I would say the biggest internal tipping point that I've ever had was coming to understand that my form of marketing is through writing. So that was like a tipping point, that once I understood that and I quit trying to, I went through a phase of like placing Facebook ads or buying ad space on other websites and like thinking, I'm marketing. Why isn't that getting me anywhere?
Right.
And then when I started just writing, it was like writing. I love to do it. I can do it all day long. I just want to write. That's what I want to do. And that's what people thank me for the most anyway. So I'll just do that. So that was one tipping point. I would say another tipping point was the publication of my e-program, the Courageous Living program. Anytime you do a focused launch effort in a business, that time of intensified guest posting, interviews, attention, traffic, all of that, it's like the way it looks for me, at least, is that there will be a spike, and then the spike comes down, but then there's a certain portion of that spike that is going to stay. So it's like you end up building on what you had before. So not everybody's going to stay during a launch. Like it's just going to be at first a lot of traffic, but some people are, and they will stay for the long haul too.
Yeah. It's like you kind of stepped up a few rungs on the ladder.
Yeah. And I can see, it's funny how you asked that question, and I can see actually how I'm in the midst of a tipping point right now. I'm actually taking my business from this very one-on-one endeavor to making it something that's much more community oriented. I'm not planning to launch this in its first year, but I am through invite only, and people who contact, so purely through word of mouth, I'm starting a coaching training, and I'm actually training other coaches, and that's going to start in January. So it's like, I can see how this trajectory that I've been on, it's about to get bigger. It's about to be more than just me working with clients one-on-one. I actually really am excited about, helping prospective people who are interested in this industry to actually become coaches. And by the way, along the way, fixing a lot of the things that I think go wrong, just as what you just said, which is that, people go through coaching training and they don't actually they either get no marketing training, or the training they get is crap. And then they're out there going, I can't make a living. And they go back to the career that they had before.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to happen. There are too many good people with so much love and care and talent. And I want them to succeed. I want them to really do this, because I think it adds something really beautiful to the world.
Yes, it does. It does. And I think there are a lot of wonderful coaches out there that are really, really skilled at coaching, and they just lack that one element of business and marketing that they need to kind of make it into a business.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm always saying, okay, you already know what it feels like to help clients through scary stuff. They don't know what they're doing. They feel like they don't have the skills. You already know all that. So transfer all of those life coaching skills that you have in that context to yourself running a business. And I think it's a really powerful way to rock this whole business thing.
I love that. So one of the things that you mentioned was your Courageous Living program. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can do. I see this program as being if someone were to take this program, and this is usually how people tell me they use it, so I love this, and just simply sit with a chapter while they have their morning coffee or tea, and then use the lesson from that chapter throughout the rest of their day, you start to build consistency. you start to build a skill set, and there's a real skill set to practicing courage. It involves things like knowing how to handle the inner critic. It involves things like scanning your body and knowing how to trust what's true for you. It involves things like when you are feeling like you just are not in your power, here are 3 different, 5 different, 10 different options that you have created from your own value system that you can turn to shift that state. And if someone is sitting down with it every day for just a chapter a day, in the morning, listening to one of the video seminars, then by the time they've taken it a chapter a day, they've got at least a month, if not more, depending the pace that they choose, of consistent practice with this. And it's really beautiful to see how someone starts to shift just through changing themselves. Like the job doesn't have to change. Their outlook on the job changes. The people in their life don't have to change. Their response, their reaction to people changes. And that is incredibly powerful. And that's courage in action. So that's how I see the program. I also use modules for that program as well. There are 4 different modules. Each one builds on the other, although they're all interconnected. They're really beautiful interviews with some really powerful people. I mean, Dr. Brene Brown, Sark, Sherry Huber, co-founders of Cafe Gratitude. I mean, just really lovely. Beautiful, beautiful people who wanted to share their wisdom about practicing courage.
And how did courage become the focus of your business?
Leading with passion. That's how. Like before courage was ever the focus of my business, I had articulated for myself that it was my freedom, I think, is my most important value. You need courage to have freedom. I'd say the two are just sitting right side by side in terms of the value that I live by. And it was just leading by passion. It was like I had a coaching practice before I realized courage was the focus of my business. And it was just like this moment of going, like actually, as I move from this part-time kind of side hustle coaching to making my coaching practice the centerpiece of my business and life, courage is it. This is it, man. This is what everything leads back to. If you practice courage, you can do anything.
And that's interesting because it was also about you having the courage to step up and make it a full-time business.
Absolutely. And I didn't make it a full-time business right away, right? It had to be like, a couple semesters of teaching where I was full-time teaching with, full-time coaching, frankly. And I did the thing that so many people want to do. I quit the job too early and struggled and went into credit card debt and was completely stressed out and, had crappy health insurance and got food poisoning and owed a really big bill. I mean, I learned from that. I learned a lot from that.
Yeah, you took quite a big leap of faith there.
Oh, I totally did. And I'm glad that I did it because I see how I really did invest a lot of time. And I also go, if I hadn't had this sort of desperation to get out of the job that I was in, I would have really just done myself a favor by just simply easing into full-time and being employed full-time by myself.
Yeah, sometimes that it reaches that point where we want to change our lives so much that we just kind of take a leap before it might be the ideal time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what would you say are the dangers of coaches trying to just struggle and not get help with their business?
It's like I think about this question and because I don't want to do the thing where I'm just like, you know what, you got to hire someone and willing to invest in your business, you'll do it. Because I get it, right? Like I've had my credit card maxed to the limit and not known exactly how I was going to pay rent, and then heard someone on a podcast somewhere going, hire someone or hire a VA. And I'm just sitting here like, honey, I am so far from hiring a VA right now. I cannot even tell you. So I want to be sensitive to that. So why don't I just say that having been sensitive to that, it's like I've hired people to give me feedback, to give me mentorship. And it is paid off every time except for one. There's the one time, I tell the story of this in the coaching blueprint, I thought that I had made a wise investment in hiring someone, and it's just one of those, she had been named as like a woman to watch in Forbes and, all this stuff. And it's just one of those times in life where shit happens. There was nothing I could have seen, but it turns out that she was just kind of wackadoo and didn't really do her job and was rude to me on the phone and actually, isn't in business anymore. And that's not a surprise to me. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it's always paid off for me. It's always paid off for me. It's like having a great editor for your manuscript. Mm-hmm. Somebody who can see the forest for the trees. Yeah. And, I still hire people for feedback on my business. I totally do that.
It really can pay off to have someone who's also been down the path that you've been on and can say, look, I've done this was wrong, this worked for me, you might want to try this.
Oh, yeah. And there are things you miss. Like, I just had a session with Tara Gentile a couple weeks ago. Tara Gentile, the last name is spelled Gentile. It's always kind of it isn't spelled the way it sounds.
Right.
So I had a thing with her and I said, let's go over some of my newsletters, And I had this newsletter where I had provided 25 tips for upping your traffic. And I had titled the subject line, "My Top Tips for Tripling Your Traffic." It's kind of a tongue twister there. And she says to me, well, Kate, and she's not saying this in an offensive way, but in essence, nobody really cares that they're your top tips. But if I see an email subject line where I'm going to get 25 tips for tripling my traffic, I'm clicking on that. And I was it was, it's a type of thing. It's like you can't see the forest for the trees. What a duh moment. Of course, people care more about getting the quantity of information than they do whether or not I think they're good.
Right.
So it was it's so great to hire someone and have that shift made. And it's like if I have 10% more conversions from making a shift like that, the session has paid for itself, fivefold. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the dangers also is it's like sometimes we get so wrapped up in our own businesses that we can't see the forest for the trees because we'll just never take the time to kind of step back and say what's working, what's not, how can I do this differently?
Oh, yeah, totally. Especially when you're getting to that point where it's like, I'm out of here. My personal thing around that is that actually a couple years into running my business, well, maybe not even a couple, I guess it was towards the end of 2010, I was so exhausted and tired of trying to figure it all out, quote unquote, that I was ready to quit.
Yeah.
And I decided that I would hire Danielle Laporte for a session. And at the time, Danielle still did consulting. She doesn't anymore, and it was $500. And mind you, I'd been burned by this other chick who had not really done the session justice, and $500 is a lot of money, and I still have credit card debt, and yada yada yada. And I just decided, you know what? I'm really honestly thinking about just kind of quitting doing this full time and going back to part time, and I won't feel right about myself unless I really try everything I can think of. And this is one thing I haven't tried, hiring her, and I hear nothing but good things about her. So I did it. And let me tell you, within a month, everything had doubled.
Wow.
But, you got to take the advice too. I've totally had people hire me and we do a session and I give them a ton of advice and suggestions and go through their website. I'm like, look, this is where this isn't converting and here's why, and you need to change it to this. And they don't do it. And then it's like, well, nothing changes in their business. And so it's got to be about taking the action that anybody you hire gives you.
Yes. Yes. Otherwise it's just a notebook full of fantastic business advice.
Exactly. It's like collecting more newsletters.
Yes.
Never actually reading them or implementing them.
Yeah.
I mean, I get, people read my coaching blueprint e-letter and I give a ton of stuff away in that e-letter. It's full of, I just mentioned a whole letter with 25 ways that you can triple your traffic. That's huge. But if people don't actually take action on those, and if they never read the newsletter, if they just delete it each week or they unsubscribe later, it's like it can't help anyone.
Yeah, exactly. You have to take the action. So what would you say are your top tips for living a courageous life?
Reframing your relationship to fear is first and foremost. You got to stop trying to get rid of fear and instead try to be in relationship with your fear. Understand that fear is a wounded part of all of us. It's just a wound, and it's going to come up whenever you're about to take a risk or do something scary, because it's trying to keep you from rejection or loneliness or feeling like an idiot in front of everyone you love, or, everybody's got a different reason. And instead of telling fear to fuck off or white knuckle your way through it or try to numb out to it, it's like, okay, why not just like sort of see it as like your little companion in the sidecar? Like, those motorcycles that have the little sidecar?
Yeah.
It's like the person on the motorcycle steers and the sidecar's there. And like fear can just be there. Like I can be totally afraid of what I'm doing with all these things in my business right now. Of course I have fear come up. What if nobody, in essence, the what if nobody comes to my party fear.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, okay, of course fear's coming up. Like, let's not pathologize it. Let's just work with it. And I define practicing courage as feeling afraid. Nobody gets out of that part. Diving in anyway, because what are you going to do otherwise? Stay stuck?
Yeah.
And transforming. And that's always what happens when we choose to meet our fear.
I absolutely love that sidecar image, because I think it's so appropriate, because you can either let the fear be in the driver's seat and take control of your life, or you can just kind of pop it back into the sidecar and then you take control and you do the things that you need to do, and even though it rides along with you. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's like, I have a line on my website people have asked me about. I say that I understand all the tricky ins and outs of fear, and that when you understand something, it becomes your friend. And I really believe that. I really do believe that when fear comes up for me, it is coming from a place that just deeply desires love and connection and is really afraid of not getting it. And in that sense of it, my fear really desires love and connection at the heart of things. And yeah, I've met some inner critics that are going to be pretty nasty and tell people that they're pathetic pieces of shit to keep them from doing something. And it sounds really nasty, but if you look beyond that, there's something really tender. And the other metaphor that I'll use with often to describe it is that our fear can often be like those stray dogs that have lived their whole life on the streets. And, they've been fighting for food, and they've been, like eating out of trash cans, and Animal Services comes in and picks up this dog and takes it to the shelter. And nobody wants anything for this dog other than to love this dog, to give it a forever home. And what happens if somebody, holds out their hand to give the dog food? The dog's probably going to snap and bite it, because all the dog knows is, I'm scared, I've been wounded, I'm now trapped, you're expecting things to be different, you're wanting me to change, I'm in a totally new environment, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
That's all our fear is doing. Yeah, lots of compassion.
Love that. So do you have any business mentors or women in business that inspire you?
Oh, yeah, so many. I mentioned I had a session with Danielle Laporte. I just, I've thanked her in person before, like for what she's given and what she's contributed to my life. And I don't think words will be enough. What she really taught me was that in business, I could be myself.
Yeah.
And I had such an overachiever complex around racking up awards and certificates. And now I'm far less concerned with any of that and far more concerned with just showing up as myself in the space. Tara Gentili, who I've mentioned, I would say she's helped me to articulate things that I felt were intuitive. So I've always had this kind of like way of going about running my business that's been, at least since I had this kind of aha around writing a couple years ago, I've had this hit around things, and I'll kind of go by how it feels. Like, does it feel like this is where I need to go? Or what does it seem like my people are asking for, or what's going on with them? But I didn't have any processes for putting things into practice that would give me consistent results. Because when I'm just going by feel, it's like, oh, there's hit or miss. And I really think Tara Gentili is just brilliant with how she sets up processes so that people are able to really see, here's what's happening in my business, and here's why people respond to this, but not this. And here's where I want to go with that next.
I like that.
Yeah, she's been, both of them have been immensely beneficial. And I mean, this doesn't really, these are just the top two. I mean, I can't say enough about the generosity of, hopping on the phone with Jen Loudon, or, these aren't traditionally business people, but, or talking to Molly Mahar about how she set up her mastermind, and, her just being like so transparent and saying, here's how I did it so that I can take whatever I wish from that and replicate it. I mean, the generosity of so many people in sharing, here's what worked for me, do you want to try it, has been huge. And I love that about being online.
I think that's fantastic. That's a really, really good point. So before we wrap things up, is there anything else you'd like to share with us about your business, about your coaching blueprint, courageous living?
No, I think this about covers it. And I mean, I guess I don't so much want to share about myself as I would just want to share with anybody who's listening that I feel that I'm living proof that you can actually start with no experience whatsoever, and really not liking the word marketing, and really not feeling comfortable with any of it, and really making every mistake that could be made, and everything's more time consuming than it has to be. But, you really can learn what you need to learn and do this and be successful. And, I'm now making more money off of my work here than I ever made teaching, than I ever made in the salaried. I mean, I know it's not hard to make more money doing other stuff than teaching, but
good point, unfortunately.
Even years when I took on overload classes and taught summer school and stuff like that, I'm making more money now than I did those years. And so, if I can do it really and truly, if you are committed and you're always, learning, and you're always saying, hey, how do I continue to show up as me in this marketplace? I really do believe that it's possible for anybody else to do it too.
Fantastic. I think that's a really, really important point, because you and your business serve as an example of what every other coach can do. It just takes.
I hope so.
It just takes work.
Yeah, it takes work. It takes commitment. Yeah, you got to have something, valuable that the marketplace is hungry for. And you know what? If anybody is thinking to themselves once they hear that, oh, well, I don't have anything valuable. It's like, no, you have something valuable. There's something about your perspective on a common issue that is unique, or that only you can deliver in that way. And just keep showing up with that. Yeah. And it is going to go somewhere.
Yeah. And I think part of the journey of starting to coach clients, somehow, even if you don't know at the beginning, it comes out, because you'll find yourself working with the same kind of client over and over again, or the same kinds of issues, and it will show up. The more you show up and start working with people, you'll realize what it is that you need to be focusing on.
Oh, totally. For some reason, I couldn't tell you why. I'm still, sort of paying attention to figure this out, is I seem to end up with a lot of clients who are PhDs or PhD candidates or grad school. And so I'm having all these conversations with people about tenure and what do they want to do for a postdoc. And I'm still trying to figure out how it is that I seem to be attracting all of these guys, because they don't know each other. So, and former NBAs and all this stuff. And they don't know one another. So I don't know how they're all finding me or what I'm putting into the space that attracts that. But I'm loving it. I'm really loving it. So it's stuff like that. Everybody who's listening to this conversation, pay attention to who is showing up in the space and what they have in common. Yeah. That'll tell you something about what you're attracting and what you're bringing in.
And keep an open mind and be aware, because you might think that you want to work with a particular group of people, but in reality, something else is happening.
Oh, yeah. That too. I started out trying to coach people on creativity, and it did not work. And it was like, oh, actually, that's not working, mostly because I don't resonate with that. So bottom line, you can do this. You're going to learn a lot. You're probably going to make some mistakes. Hopefully you'll make fewer mistakes because you're, listening to Holly and her brilliance, or you're finding some gem from me. Hopefully you're able to circumvent a lot of that. Yeah. But you can do it.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to share some links in the show notes so that people can kind of click through and find you online. But I also like to mention, where can people find you online?
yourcourageouslife.com, and as of October 3rd, especially if you're interested in heart-centered business advice or suggestions, strategies, and inspiration, it would be coachingblueprint.com. And I work primarily with life coaches over there, but really anyone with like a very heart-centered, client-centered business would be welcome. So I get a lot of acupuncturists and, therapists and stuff like that.
Fantastic. Kate, thank you so much for joining us here today. This was so interesting and so useful, and I think you've shared so many really valuable tips for people.
Well, thank you for having me and asking such great questions. Thank you for doing the work to try to help other people figure this stuff out too.
To me, that's the most important thing, because I know I came to my business with previous business experience and I still struggle to set things up. So my thing is to just help people in any way I can.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks again, Kate. All right. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. You're a great interviewer, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, you really, I even still really struggle with interviewing someone and asking the question, but taking 5 minutes to set the question up, or asking the question and then anecdotally launching my own example, which when I listen to the interview later, I'm like, nobody's listening to this interview to hear about you, Kate. They're wanting to hear the answer of the person you're interviewing. And you are just crisp and sharp, and it's so refreshing. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
I'll take a couple hints from this, because it really was really well done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was very useful, actually, to hear that. So thanks.
Yeah.
So you're going to go live on Monday the 30th, and I will send you, as you requested, through. You've got your form on your website, so I'll send that through just so you know.
Perfect. And if you would also send me an email, because the form, I won't get a notification that that's there. And when you inputting your information on that form, I do cycle back through archives and republish, retweet, reshare reviews and things like that later in the year and all that.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you very, very much.
Oh, of course.
And I hope you have a lovely evening in San Francisco.
Thank you. And thank you for your flexibility on that. I really appreciate it.
No problem. All right. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Socially Holistic Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. Please help us help more women in business by giving us a 5-star review of this podcast. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more successful businesses there will be. So please leave a 5-star review today over at iTunes. Thank you.